Hello to absolutely no one out there because I know no one's watching right now. This is completely unannounced. This is Aaron's Christmas leftovers special. I have a few sketches that I didn't get done during Christmas Con, and I got to get them finished tonight. And I thought, you know what? If I'm going to be doing them, I might as well broadcast, and we'll see if I pick up anybody that may want to watch me draw a little bit. If not, I'm sure a few people will watch after the fact. So anyway, I'm not going to sit around and wait for people to show up because probably no one will. So I got nothing to sell. Actually, that's not true, but I'll get to that later. But let's just get to work, shall we? I got stuff to do, and it ain't getting done with me talking. We all recognize this mess. Well, interestingly enough, Sue Storm, after I posted that one color piece that sold, by the way, suddenly everybody and their uncle wanted a Sue Storm commission. Hey, there's Ashley. I bet she picked up some bottomless pajamas or something. Oh, there we go. Roscoe Davis digs leftovers. Hyper Potatoes here because you can't ever get enough Christmas, can you? So you may remember this. So I posted this. It sold, of course, Friday night, but like two people automatically contacted me and goes, oh, I want a Sue Storm. Oh, I want a Sue Storm. So now it's like the most popular character in the world suddenly. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a new one. This one will be grayscale though, because that's just how I roll. I haven't asked my uncle if he wants a Sue Storm, should I? Well, this is the last of the Christmas Con sketches tonight. Anything else goes on my regular commission list, which then you have to kind of wait for your turn to come up. But I've been going through them fairly quickly, so it's probably about a 2-week wait at this point. All right. Now if I can find the C0 that I got 4 C0s because I can't get any refills, and so I've been having a heck of a time. I have to keep buying new pens instead of the refills because they're not making the refills right now. They were supposed to, Copic was supposed to, this is the new one. They're supposed to have new refills out like in the summertime and they still haven't done it. So you go to the, any of the art supply stores and all they have is whatever they have left over from, the past year. And they don't have a lot of refills left. And there's no, at least in my store, and there's none online at Dick Blick's, there's no cool gray zeros. So all I can do is buy the pens. They have plenty of the pens. They just don't have any of the refills. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So I'm going to go in and lay down a cool gray zero here as a base. For Sue Storm's uniform costume. Is it a uniform? It's not a uniform, it's a costume. I'm going to save up someday and get Aaron to draw a 66 Batman and Robin. See, then I got to make it look like those guys. That's even more work, but I'm always up for the challenge, unless I'm not. But my old art mentor from Commercial Art Studio I used to work in before I got into comics, he said, never turn down a job. Figure out how you're going to do it later. Always say yes. So I have, there's very few. I turned down a Vampirella because she's just too sleazy, so I don't draw her. But which Copics are you looking for? I was looking for the refills for a cool zero, and you can't get them anyplace because they're sold. They're out. We're waiting for Copic to put their new pens and refills on the market, and they haven't done it yet. It's a sad story. I know. You can wipe the tears. No, but like Aaron's style. No, but I like Aaron's style. Oh, I see. They're not still publishing that, are they? The Batman 1966. My guess is they're not. But it was kind of a groovy comic, in the purest sense of the word groovy. So I put up my Christmas decorations this evening, or this afternoon. Not as many as usual because our dog is a vandal. And so anything that's like, we had like, you know, not stuffed animals, but we had a lot of like, we have a lot of nutcrackers and other big, you know, I guess stuffed characters like snowmen and things like that we would put in our living room or on the floor around, but he would just chew them to pieces. So we didn't put out a lot of stuff this year. Anything that the dog could reach didn't make the cut this year. So it actually didn't take me that long to get this stuff put up, but I did do it. Don't have a tree yet, but will soon. Even the tree is going to have to go up on a table so that the dog can't munch on it. Man's best friend. Yeah, right. Okay. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to go dark here. I'm going to go... Yeah, Warren says, oh, will I do another Miles Morales? Never, Ashley, will I ever draw Miles Morales again. Warren says, you're getting good at drawing Sue Storm. Like, maybe you should write and draw a miniseries for that M company. Well, that's the only way I'd do anything for him is if I wrote and drew it. That way I could sort of control content a little bit. Yes, Michael, I am taking commissions. This is about a 2-week wait, but I am taking, even as we speak. If someone were to say be interested, one would message me on Facebook or email me to find out this information, which I would gladly give them on price and options. So that's what I do. I'm here for you guys, man. I'm going to blend some of this darker gray with a C2. Oops, I didn't put any darker one there. Better hit that first. Here we go. Oh, I was contemplating whether or not to do this or not tonight, because I'm kind of in nap mode right now, but I was like, I looked at these things and said, man, I got to get these done. So I said, if I go online, it'll force me to do it. So it's only 6:45 here in on the West Coast. I really can't justify going to bed at 6:45 anyway. So. I mean, I could, I suppose, but not if I want to keep the old man jokes at bay. Going to bed at 6:30 is not the way to do that. But my dog wakes me up at like 5 or 5:30 every morning, so it's not like, you know, I'm going to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock at night and getting up at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. It's like I'm getting up at 5. That's why I'm tired all the time. Too old to have a high energy dog. That's true. As soon as it gets dark, you can go to bed. That's the way I used to do it back in the old days, right? Go to bed when it gets dark, get up when it gets light out. They didn't have daylight savings time back in the old log cabin days. I hate to be like Abe Lincoln and have to like draw by candlelight or sit in front of the fireplace and draw by the light of the fire. This is the way the marker was meant to be used. Just go in there and lay it in quick, down and dirty, like you would a watercolor. Don't overdo it. Don't use a blending tool. Just use a lighter marker to go in and blend. That's kind of how it works. Interestingly enough, I learned how to use markers at Commercial Art Studio while doing commercial storyboards. Because when you're storyboarding a commercial, it was kind of, they wanted them in color, and you did it with markers. And so I learned how to use markers back before I ever broke into comics, and then I didn't use them again, and until that became kind of the fad thing to do at conventions. I guess we can thank Adam Hughes for that, because he's really the one, I think, first guy who really started using markers. Hey, Johnny Fitch dropped in. Yeah, it's the Bob Ross experience. If I don't talk too much, you can actually hear the markers on the paper. But I'm one of those guys who feels like I need to be talking all the time. If I'm sitting in a room with people or whatever, no one's talking. Even if they don't want to talk, it feels so uncomfortable, I start talking. And I don't know if that's a good habit or a bad habit, but it is a habit. I'm going the classic Sue Storm look here. I'm going to go with the original costume that Kirby did. Because I want to differentiate it a little bit from the one I did previously. So it's looking pretty nice. So go in here. So Kirby would do the costume would be all blue, but the gloves and the boots were like, I mean, he would use blue, but he put a lot of black in there, and it was kind of used blue as the highlights for the gloves, which I thought was interesting. I was never a big FF fan growing up. I don't know why. I had put most of my focus on Spider-Man, I guess. But now I kind of wish I was more of a FF fan, but they're all so expensive. Going back and starting to, go back and buy FF comics. Yeesh. I mean, in high grade, which is the only way I buy anymore. So, Johnny, you have a question. What is it, man? Ask away. Spider-Man is the best. That was the only book when I was a kid that I absolutely bought every issue. Like every month, I was right there ready for it to come out, and I was fully engaged in it. But you know, I bought Avengers on and off. I bought Captain America on and off. You know, monster books like Man-Thing and Werewolf by Night on and off. You know, I always bought first issues because even when I was a kid, I was a bit of a collector. But Spider-Man never failed. I got every issue. I think the first one I bought off the newsstand was 138, and I didn't stop buying them until he hit 200. Because I think by then I was like 16 or something, and you know, my money started going into my car and dates and things like that. And then I had to retroactively go back and buy like 200 and up, but they weren't that expensive. So, but I've sold my entire Spider-Man collection anyway. So, Johnny Fitz' question is, here it is. Let's show it live. What would you say was the most unorthodox thing you've ever worked on for either Marvel or DC? Well, I would have to probably, well, what the definitely was doing a superhero parody book was somewhat unorthodox, I think. In terms of straight superhero stuff, wow. Let me get a sip of water while I contemplate this. The most unorthodox. Well, let's see. My Metamorpho miniseries was certainly a little bit out of the mainstream. And actually, it would have been way more out of the mainstream and way more interesting if Dan DiDio had let me do what I wanted to do. But he wanted something more bigger and more epic. That's what it turned into, sort of a interdimensional drama, as opposed to it was very noirish, underground sort of. The original concept was that Metamorpho, really, because he was so ugly and, he just didn't know what to do with his powers. So he sort of became this hitman, not a hit, well, an enforcer. How's that? Enforcer for the mob or criminal elements. He's basically, it was kind of amoral in the sense that he didn't, he'd do good things if you paid him. He'd do bad things if you paid him. And had sort of this, if you remember the movie Darkman, had sort of a hidden lab for his bases of operations. And of course, he became a good guy by the end of it, but it was very, kind of dark and noirish. And Dan was like, nah, we need something more superhero-y and more bigger. So then it became this sort of interdimensional quest of worlds kind of thing, which was okay. Unorthodox. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I guess if I did something in Vertigo, which I never really did, that stuff gets a little bit more unorthodox, I suppose. Garbage Man was certainly not mainstream, but it was sort of mainstream monster. So it wasn't all that different than Swamp Thing or Man Thing was. So I had a proposal still sitting here for Night Nurse that's actually pretty funny. So that would be an unorthodox in the sense that it was kind of a parody of romance comics, but also a superhero infused humorous take on the whole thing. So that would have been very unorthodox, but that still, I should show you guys I'll dig it up. The promo art I did for it to kind of help sell the pitch. And I don't know if we ever actually pitched it, if it ever got off the ground. I don't remember. Interesting. I can't remember. But anyway, I penciled and inked like a promo piece, and then I had Brian Miller over at Hi-Fi color it for me because he did it out of the kindness of his heart. This was at least 20 years ago, 25 years ago, maybe. And still actually kind of a fun story, but there it sits in my drawer. I also have a Man-Thing one shot I wanted to do. Of course, I wanted to call it Giant Size Man-Thing. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see her face when I'm working on it. Sue Storm in high def. So I'm going with a warm 0. So Johnny, I don't even know if I answered your question, but that's the best answer I got. I've got drawers full of old pitches. So I had this really cool one where the Green Goblin came back from hell to get Spider-Man. He made a deal with the devil or Mephisto that if he let him come back and get his revenge on Spider-Man, he'd bring him Spider-Man's soul. So you have this like Norman Osborn comes back from the grave and he's like decomposing because he's dead, and the Green Goblin is decomposing. It's just kind of, and there that sits. Warren, quit making demands. See, Warren's coming in here and he's trying to boss me around. And you know what that means? That means, okay. All right, I'll lose the banner. I want people to know what they're watching. I guess now it's just Aaron Lopresti. It's not Christmas leftover. Come on, that was pretty clever, actually. All right. Let's see. Okay. Yes, you laugh now. I think that's the one comment I can always count on from you, Warren. Every time I do one of these is, turn the banner off, I can't see. Which is a good complaint. I mean, it's valid. So put a little bit of, this is a warm 2. Now see, I never started using the warm grays for flesh tones until I saw Adam Hughes do it. And I thought, if it's good enough for Adam, it's good enough for me. I was always afraid they'd be too yellow, but it works really well, I think, for if you're doing a black and white piece, for kind of to create the illusion of a skin tone. All right, so kind of toggling back and forth between a warm 0 and a warm 2. Ashley, didn't you not see the Grinch clip last night? I used it about 10 times. But that's my go-to. When someone in the audience sasses me a little bit, I give them the old annoyed Grinch clip. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go bold here, and I'm going to go with a warm 3 on the shadow side of her face. Call me crazy. Yeah, then I gotta soften that shadow on her chin a little bit now. Soften the edge anyway. It's beautiful, man. I think that's the look we're going for right there. Whoop, it can't, again, the subtleties don't really pick up on line that much, but you can see that it's a little bit darker here and here along the side to kind of just give it a little bit of modeling. It's a little bit more pronounced in the actual art than what you're seeing on screen, but you get the general idea anyway. This is a warm 0 for the hair. She's blonde. We'll just do that, and then I'm going to go with a 3 and just put in a few shadows in the hair and call it good. Soften these up a little bit up here with that 0. There we go. Sue Storm, supermodel, mom, superhero, and the love of the Submariner. I guess Reed loves her too, although he's so cold and calculating. I'm going to put a little blue in her eyes because that's just the kind of guy I am. And because the last Sue Storm I did a quick overlay of blue. I'm going to do the same one to this so that since there's 2 different guys getting these Sue Storms, I don't want to compare notes and say, hey, how come you got blue on yours and there's no blue on mine? So I'm just going to go in here and do this real quickly over the top. Just to tinge it a little bit to the blue. Not pressing particularly hard, just try to keep all my linear lines. Of course, any line would be linear, I guess, wouldn't it? Well, I guess it could be circular, couldn't it? Keep them all going the same direction so it doesn't look messy, has kind of a uniformity to it. Try not to overlap the lines too much because then you have a darker area. All right, so then I do that. Then I get my old smudge markered piece of tissue paper. Find the blue section on there. And then just go over and do this, which really sort of softens up all the line work I just did with the pencil. Smoother. And then you get this nice little blue tint, and everybody, and I mean everybody's happy. Boom. All right, so then we're going to do the old, I guess, which became the Erin technique. We're just going to go over with a heavy black outline. So, because again, you go over it with colored pencil and marker and it dulls that black. And I really kind of want it to sort of jump out a little bit. So, Again, even when I'm doing these long, smooth lines like on her thighs or arms, it's like you do not want to go too slow because you're going to get a bumpy line. You got to go fast enough that you can continue to get a smooth line, but still maintain control of the line so you're not all over the place. And that's what's actually easier about a brush than a pen in these circumstances. You can really get that nice, thicker, fluid line if that's what you're going for with a brush. Brush is much harder to use, of course, than a pen is. But yet a pen is a much cooler inking style, and the brush is much more old-fashioned and old school, but that, I guess that's my middle name, isn't it? I've tried to ink with a pen before, and I haven't been 100% happy with the results. It's probably just because I'm more comfortable using a brush because I have my entire life. But a brush, you have to be careful because you can get real sloppy. You have to maintain your focus so that you're not getting sloppy lines, because that really looks horrible. And we don't want that. Benjamin Lee, hello, Merry Christmas, day 3. This is my, I'm going to tick off Warren and do this real quick. See, Ben, this is actually Aaron's Christmas leftovers special. So it's actually not day 3. It's a whole new thing. It's Aaron's Christmas leftovers special. So if you were looking in the TV guide, if you guys even remember what that is, that's what it would say. I did a Xena story that was in a TV Guide magazine once. Back when I was working for Topps. I don't think there's a company that I have not worked for. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's called staying employed, which is a good thing, but having to stay employed by jumping around to hundreds of different companies is probably not, doesn't say it. It's not a positive reflection on yourself. All right. Benjamin Lee, 19. I was still a toddler in TV Guide days. Oh, brother. Well, you know what that means. When you get the sass. There we go. These are the best, Paul. These are the best leftovers. Okay, what am I doing here? I think I want to punch up her eyelashes a little bit because they get a little dull with all the marker over the top. So oh, and those of you who actually ordered artwork from the show or a print or books or whatever, those will be going out sporadically throughout the week because I actually have to package all that stuff up. All the books are packaged up, however, and ready to go. I will get all the art out hopefully by Wednesday, but it does take time to cut all the cardboard and the styrofoam and package that stuff up. So please be patient. Still have my Wonder Woman TV Guide frame. There you go. It's a collectible. I have a TV Guide that has Shatner on the cover from one of the Star Trek movies or something, and then I have the one that I did the Xena story in. That's about it. I have a few choice Sports Illustrateds. I have some old movie magazines, you know, People magazine with the Raiders of the Lost Ark cover. You don't know if you remember, there was a movie magazine called Premiere Magazine. Came out, it started coming out in the mid 80s. I don't know how long it lasted, but I used to, I got several of those, like Spielberg covers or whatever. So of course I'm going around it with a warm gray, number 3. Actually, that brings me to, because I know many of you are asking yourself, what's Aaron's first published work? I mean, first published work. There was an old movie came out in the 80s. Thank you, Paul. Came out in the 80s called Jacob's Ladder. And the script for it is quite good. It's way better than the movie. And they really, the script was full of special effects. And I think it was Paul Verhoeven or somebody ended up doing the movie. Had Tim Robbins in it. And he didn't want it to be a big special effects thing. So he cut all the special effects, which really made it more of a human drama. But it really didn't turn out the way it could have turned out if they'd used the original script. But anyway, so for a long time, it was considered the script in Hollywood that everybody wanted to do, but everybody was afraid to do because of the special effects in it. And like I said, this was like the early 80s. So they hadn't really, hadn't hit the Jurassic Park stuff yet. So Cinefantastique magazine, I guess I sent them some samples or something, and they contacted me and they wanted me to do like storyboard pencil drawings for the script. And so I did it. And so there's actually, if you look for the Cinefantastique magazine that has the Psycho 2 cover with Anthony Perkins promoting Psycho 2, you will find Aaron Lopresti's first published work ever. All right, this one's done. That's pretty nice, I think. So I'll sign it, which is admitting for all time that I did it. There's a few of them out there that I wish I hadn't signed. Okay, so that's that. Now I've got one more. This is for Caleb Edmund, yes. And this is his own character. And I did one last con that was reversed. It was like the Ninja Warrior and then her alter ego over here. So now he wants her in her human persona or her regular persona and the headshot of the Ninja Warrior up there. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, as you can see, I've already penciled it. So we get to go to the good stuff. Okay, Ashley, you're going to bring it. All right, there we go. How much was the Fantastic Four sketch that you worked on? Are you talking about the Sue Storm? Because I didn't do an entire Fantastic Four. That's directed at Benjamin Lee here. Let's, well, first of all, this is why Ashley just got the Grinch because of her sass. And this is Ben Lee's question. How much was that Fantastic Four sketch that you worked on? It was beautiful. Thank you. I assume you're talking about the Sue Storm. He says, yeah, Sue Storm. 200. Those are what the convention con sketches go for. And that's essentially what these are. They're gray marker pieces. So, I did want to do this really quickly. Speaking of the FF, I almost forgot. Everything's sold except poor Ben Grimm. He's still for sale. So if you're feeling the need to get a superhero portrait smoking a cigar, that is still available for $150, which is interesting because when I posted it on Facebook, everybody's like, "Oh, I want it, I want it, I want it." And I said, "No, I'm holding it for the con." And then, of course, when the con comes, no one bids on it. So, but anyway, that is still available. So if you're interested, let me know. Yeah, see, there it is, 9x12 full color. It's a nice piece. So that is still, that's the only one I got still available. So, or another $45 sketchbook. Yeah, but there's no color in the $45 sketchbooks. All right, love you too, Ashley. Thanks for chiming in and sassing me. I always appreciate it. Enjoy your evening. Yeah, well, there you go. See, Benjamin Lee, you should actually buy Benjamin Grimm, right? Okay. That's my sales pitch for that, but I just want to remind you guys in case. All right, so we got this woman. I don't know what she does by day, but she's a ninja by night. I know that. So we're going to ink this. I was going to say we're going to ink this guy, but it's not really a guy, is it? We're going to ink this gal. And marker it up. But Ben Grimm might be practice. Wait a minute, smoking a cigar is not the same as smoking weed, all right? Don't and remember, smoking weed just makes you tired and lazy, so don't do it. Unmotivated. I find trouble with motivation now at my age that if I added weed to the mix, I would really be hurting myself.
You added weed to the mix? That's what I come into?
Oh, look, Shelly, unexpected, showed up. She's a
wait.
first grader. Oh,
What?
She's a first grade. What? She's a first grade teacher. Who is? Oh, your character, Caleb jumped in. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Well, weed was what motivated me to draw all the time. I don't know. I think you're high. Oh, yeah.
Let's see.
I think it's important that I do this. There we go.
Just for fun.
Just for fun.
What have I missed?
If I could afford it, I'd add to my Sue Storm. Gotta buy my son Transformers for Christmas, though. I understand.
Yeah.
We went down that route.
Quite the collection of Beast War toys.
Yep.
I could transform them faster than anything. And we could build an entire Hot Wheel village.
She's a first grade teacher by
day.
Ooh, then maybe I shouldn't have her in a short skirt. Well, she's not teaching right now. Maybe she's going on a date, so I'm going to leave her in the short skirt.
Yeah, grade school teachers usually have something with an alphabet on their clothes.
Yeah, we're not going to go there.
They go for comfort because they have to actually get down to the kids' level. She'll finally sleep well knowing your first published work. The sass is strong with this one.
Yeah, Ashley already bailed out, but she earned, I think, 3 Grinches in the time that she was here. So
that's awesome. Oh, an orthodox question. That's good.
What's that? Oh, yeah. I already addressed that.
Yeah, I'm coming in late, folks. Sorry.
Couldn't resist the temptation to go online.
You couldn't?
No, you couldn't.
Oh, no. I had to get up to... I have to play teacher. Plan for next week.
Oh, that's true. But you're a little bit farther advanced than first grade teacher.
I think they've got me beat, though. I'm not that nice. I get calls every day that I've made children cry.
Well, when you're teaching
And
what
the
you're
whole
teaching.
like snotty nose and tap, tap, tap and teacher. Yeah. That's not in my wheelhouse. So yes, Benjamin, there's strains that help you sleep and alleviate pain, but the medical community won't let you. Well, I guess not everybody sees a pain doctor, I guess. Just me, the lucky one.
Do, 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 do. Okay. I'm gonna have to go in with a more detailed touch for the face, but this big face up here,
She's safe for COVID.
safe for COVID and killing. First grade teacher by day, ninja assassin by night. Who would have thought it?
Good job, Benjamin. I wouldn't mind something to help me sleep. Although I was on Ambien for a couple of years. And believe it or not, it made me shop online.
Yeah, so like some guy
In my
showed up
sleep.
with like 6 telephones one morning. And
No,
it was 2. It was a box of phones
No.
or something.
a huge box from Kohl's did show up. And apparently I'm a really good shopper in my sleep because I got some killer stuff, awesome deals.
No, there was that
Look,
phone thing, and you.
I'm getting there,
Okay.
Mr. Sassy Pants. Oh gosh. Hold me back, people. Well, no, I thought I had a dream. And I was driving to school the next day with Joshua, telling him how I had this weird dream that I bought his sister a cell phone, and she was like in 3rd grade. And in my opinion, no 3rd grader needs a phone. And so I was just kind of giggling, like, well, that was dumb. And that I bought her all this bling to decorate and a little crock to carry it in. And then checked our email later, and there was an email from Verizon saying, thank you for your order. So I had to call them and tell them that I ordered it while I was on Ambien. And they believed me, which, I mean, it was true. I was really embarrassed, but there's no way I'd let my 3rd grader have a phone.
Well, see, I knew there was a phone involved somehow.
You just mooshed them together. Feels like midnight. Anybody else? Who's with me? Feels like midnight. Well, I'm sure it's midnight somewhere.
Yes, I'm sure it is. Like Australia? Well, no, it's probably in the morning, Australia. Well, let's see, what is it? England is it's 9 hours. Well, that's 4 in the morning. It's 10:30 on the East Coast. So if you're like in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, you'd be midnight.
I see. It's a good thing you never took Ambien.
God, who knows what would have happened.
We would have had a lot more comic books.
Oh my gosh, I should have taken Ambien. I'd like have Spider-Man #1 sitting there, and I'd still be paying it off, but I wouldn't return it. Be going, oh no, I can't return this now that I've got it in my hands.
Damn it, I should have married better. Next time you get married, you can marry for money.
Yeah.
Yep.
don't know why I'm doing all this line work in this hair because it's all going to be black, but I guess it gives me a guide sort of to create the. Going to bring the hair down here for a little bit of a design element. Well, I'm sure she wouldn't have this, pony quite like that, but that's how we're playing it for this piece anyway.
All right. I'm going to go grade some tests. If you hear any screaming, it's just me grading. Algebra tests.
The math is strong with this one. Okay. Using a 0.1 micron now for and she's smiling because she's so sweet until she kills you. Put the eyebrows in, they'll probably end up getting covered up by the rim of the glasses anyway. Okay, let's see. I should be zooming in on this, shouldn't I? Okay. Hey, the collector's dropped in. Now, Lloyd, do you have a Spider-Man #1? I'm guessing you do. After all, you are the collector. I'm going to change up to a 3 because I need to really I want a little bit heavier line than I'm getting with that 1 right now. I'm surprised my dog hasn't come in here to annoy me. Oh, he's over asleep on the pillow, that's why. It's so sweet. Well, again, I feel kind of bad that I put a first grade teacher in a kind of a skirt here like this, but hey, you know what? This is after hours. She's heading out with the principal. Ooh, probably not. Maybe though. Would the $45 sketch in the sketchbook be drawn today after this commission, assuming I get one today? Today? Well, if you want one with free shipping, you better get it today because the free shipping ends tonight. Yeah, if you order it right now, I'll do it after this, all right? Make you happy. Things I do for you guys. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. I think that looks pretty good, actually. All right, what do you want in it, Benjamin Lee? To follow my friend Stephen Ing's role model. He's got more books than... And he just ordered another one today as a Christmas present for some friends of his. And I thought, isn't that nice? Get an Aaron Lopresti sketchbook for a friend. I think that's a great idea. All right. Tremendous. Well, I should stop here, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to stop here. Now, Caleb, I don't know. Are you still in here someplace? Because I'm trying to remember on the last one I did if I did their hair black or if I used grays or if I used black in their hair, because I want to keep it consistent since you're going to put these two side by side. So if you're still there, chime in and let me know before I start, before I do the hair. How many does that make for Stephen Ing now? He did a Kit Carter, he did a Tangled, he did that Navy ad, 1920s, join the Navy girl in the naval cap, and then he did the Johnny Quest monster last night. So it's at least 4 for him, and then he ordered this 5th one that he's giving as a gift. I know there's several guys that have multiple copies, but I'd have to go back and check my list. But I don't think anybody's ordered 4. It's a cumbersome way to collect head sketches, I can tell you that. But, you know, if you got the shelf space, I highly recommend it. I only have 1 copy on my shelf because I don't have the shelf space. And I didn't do any sketch inside it either. Caleb, black with gray highlights, I think you meant to say. Okay, cool. That's what I will do then. Erasing's the most fun. All right, well, I'm going to do flesh tones first anyway, because those warm grays are the most likely to make the blacks bleed. So if I do, excuse me while I wet the old whistle. Sorry about that. Trying to get a better shot. There we go. Okay, Caleb, you're still there. Good. Did I do on the background head of the one I did before? Did I do the background head character with warm gray on the flesh, or did I do her just completely gray because she was in the background? I can't remember, and I need clarification on that as well. Rodney Labart, you have 5. Wonder Woman, Godiva, Achilles. Oh, I remember that. The Egyptian goddess, which can't be named. That's correct. And the Orphan Sisters. Yeah, okay. Yep. So Rodney's got quite a collection, just like you have your whole Aaron Lopresti shelf, right? That's just... We have to pause for a moment, so I'm waiting for Caleb to answer my question. And while we're pausing, let's take a look at the Thing, which is still for sale. It's a really nice color piece. 9x12 on heavy double ply bristle. Very nice piece. Highly collectible, I think. Anyway, so let's not forget about that. You know, I need to run some banners. I haven't been running any banners. How about this one? I need more subscribers. Subscribe and like because it's free. It makes so much sense. Caleb jumped in. Warm grays all the way around. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Enough stalling. I get to the where's my warm gray 0 at? That's a 3. I don't need a 3. I need a 0. That's a 2. Well, that's just, oh, here it is. Okay. All right. I'm jumping in. Jumping in feet first. I'll probably press too hard with these markers too, and that's why I kind of bleed the black sometimes, is because if I just kind of dab over the blacks, it seems to work pretty well. So when I start rubbing across them, that they tend to always find one spot that'll smear. It's just, you know, it's just not cool, man. I'm going to let you choose which character, either Fing Fang Foom, ooh, or Swamp Thing, ooh. Wow. That is, I'm probably going to go Swamp Thing, but that's a tough one. But I do love Swamp Thing because, well, frankly, I love Bernie Wrightson, and Wrightson created Swamp Things, so there you have it. Well, okay, but I'm just doing a Swamp Thing headshot, Benjamin. I'm not going to actually be drawing jungle and stuff in there as well. It's just a headshot, man. My love of jungle stuff comes from Frazetta, though. That's what happens, man. We're all products of the era we grew up in and what we were looking at and what we were reading, right? And I was actually discovered Wrightson later, and I became a big. I've always been kind of a monster fan, but yeah, Frazetta was my earliest influence. But it's strange that I'd say that, because the guy that I copied was Wrightson. You know, as I told you guys before, I sold my entire Wrightson collection, and I had just about everything of his published work. But my style was getting too similar to his, and so therefore I kept, you know, it was like, if I came across a problem in one of my drawings, I'd go look and see how Wrightson solved it, and then just do what he did. Excuse me. And a result, all my stuff started ending up looking like, you know, Wrightson. Kind of drew like Wrightson, my characters and stuff, and I was just like, I can't do this. I didn't want to become a poor man's Bernie Wrightson. Instead, I wanted to become a poor man's Aaron Lopresti. And so I got rid of my entire Wrightson collection, which of course I, for most part, bought most of it back, with the exception of a look back. I have not got that book again, and I need to, but it's kind of expensive. And I always talk myself out of spending the money now on that. If I'm going to drop $400 on a book, it's going to be a collectible comic, not an art book, but I think I'll break down eventually and get it. Okay, so according to Caleb, I'm using black with some gray highlights. So that's what I'm going to do. Time is it? 7:45. It's early, unless you're on the East Coast. And then it ain't early. So I figured it'll take at least another half hour to finish this, and then I got to do a Swamp Thing sketch in the sketchbook. So we're going to be here at least an hour. Well, probably about an hour more. I have to keep buying black pens too, because I refuse to refill the blacks anymore, because they're so messy, and inevitably gets all over my hands and everything else, and the cleanup is worse than refilling. So I'm just like spending $5 on a marker and then throwing it away when it runs dry, because I don't want to refill it. It's tragic, really. Let's see. Stephen Inge is joining us. I look back as a collectible art book. A better use of dollars than an old comic book, says the brother of a book dealer. Yeah, I know your brother has got a couple of them I'm looking at, and I keep looking at. Well, yes, but I mean, a comic book is collectible too. You know, it's not just like because the art book is collectible. But yeah, I need to get it. I bought the original when it came out. I saw an ad for it in the Buyer's Guide to Comic Fandom, which was a weekly newspaper back in the 70s, and I guess it was in the 80s too. That basically it was like the connection to the comic world and what was going on, because obviously there was no internet or anything like that. So I would get this, and then they would always have advertisements for stuff like that, right? And so Christopher Zavisa, who's the one who was the publisher, they had this big, like, I think it was a double-page ad in there and you had to order it like, man, was it 6 months or more before the book came out? It might even been a year. And I got the signed limited edition print, numbered print that had the drawing of the vampire tipped into the front of the book, so it was like kind of glued at the top, and so you'd open up the book, and there on the inside front cover was this limited edition Wrightson vampire print. It was an oil painting of a vampire pulling a stake out of his heart, and then he had some guy by the collar, below him, and so this was like, and there was limited edition to 250 of those, and I got a fairly low number because I ordered pretty early. It was under 100, I know, and so anyway, it was $125, and I was like, was this 78? So I was like 14 or something, and really had to convince my parents that it was a good idea for me to spend $125 on a book in 1978. But I was such a Wrightson honk, I had to have it. And so I ordered it and waited and waited and waited. And they'd send like little cards updating the progress on the book. And they finally showed up, UPS, and it's the most wonderful day of my life. So yeah, I guess I should get it. I'm about to start crying. So Caleb says he's an East Coast guy, so he's hanging in there. I bet you're probably up drawing right now too. And okay, you know where I got this? I will. Wait a minute. Where was it? Did you delete something? Oh no, there it is. Rodney says it right there. I love seeing you draw here. This is kind of this technique is very Frazetta inspired. If you look at Frazetta's hair, what he does is much softer than what I'm doing here, but he will take, like if you look at his comic book work, he'll take like these big, large areas of black like this, like I'm doing here, and then these will be the highlights in there for his dark-haired characters. Rather than doing just this like obsessive line work, he would do it with shapes, and it looked so much more real and lush. And so that's where I got this from. Mine's a little bit more stylized than his because his was very soft edged and really did look like hair, like shiny hair. But that's kind of where I got the idea to do this. I'm going to go in with a neutral gray, I think. Caleb says TEP. TEP. I'm sure he meant to type something else. TEP. Maybe that stands for something. I don't know. See, I'm not hip, you guys. I'm like probably 20 years older than most of you guys. So it's like you abbreviate this stuff. I'm like, I have no idea what that guy's talking about. And it could just be a misspelling too. And then I really would have no idea what you're talking about because I don't know what the point that you're trying to make if you misspell the word. Yep. Okay. See, figured. And that is a yep, meaning that you're drawing right now. See, I remembered what I actually said prior that you responded to, which is a miracle in and of itself. Okay, so that was a N3. I might have to go darker than that, but I'm going to jump in here with an N2 now. And there goes my dog. Actually, I'm going to go with an N1. So that was an N, what did I just say it was, an N3? Yeah. So I'm going to go in here, soften that edge a little bit. And I'll have to go back in and put in white highlights later, but The N1's about out. You can hear it squeaking. Okay. Good night to that. I refilled all my pens before I started the con this weekend, except my ends, because I almost never, I used to use the neutral grays all the time. Now I hardly use them at all. So we'll go in here with it. This is a 2. We'll go in over the top like that with 2. Leaving that center in there to kind of represent our highlight. And then this one's almost dry too. Now, I still don't feel that gray is dark enough coming out of the black, so I'm going to go bold. I'm going to go with a neutral 5 here, right up against the black, to ease that. Are we, Rodney? Okay, good. Then we share the same influences. I used to love to go to bookstores when I was a kid, and when they still had those things, and they had a paperback section, a huge paperback section, right, that would be against the wall on a rack. At least this one store did. It was called the Book Vault. And they had all the science fiction stuff. So you could see the Frazetta covers and the James Bama, Doc Savage covers, and even the Bama Western covers were cool. And then, so there was some Boris Vallejo covers. And the funny thing is about those, you never really had to pick them up. So I never got in trouble for, hey, kid, this isn't a library, because all they wanted to do was look at the cover, right? And it was just sitting right there. So I would just sit there and look at these covers for, my parents would go and shop in the mall or whatever, and they would just leave me in the bookstore and then come back and get me when they were done. And I always found plenty to keep my mind occupied. It was that same bookstore, the Book Vault, where I first discovered Simonson's Aliens adaptation. If you remember that, I think Heavy Metal published it. In fact, I know Heavy Metal published it. And but I remember seeing that, Archie Goodwin and Simonson. And of course, all the Frazetta, Fantastic Art of Frank Frazetta books were in there as well. And that's where I discovered all those, and I had to have all those. And of course, I wanted to be an oil painter after seeing it, because those were mostly Frazetta oil paints. The thing is, I've done oil painting before, and I've on and off throughout my life, but it was the only time I ever really painted a lot was when I was during stints when I was unemployed. And I would just spend all the time painting, and I would start to get pretty good, because I had like a couple periods where I went 3 months without work twice in my career. This is now the 3rd time, but back then I didn't have people wanting commissions or anything, but I would spend all my time training myself to paint. And so after about 3 months, I was pretty good. I was starting to get it, and then I would get work, and then I wouldn't paint again for 5 years. So I've never really got a handle on it like I wanted to. Thank you.
Nice work, man.
Those are shiny hair.
Mm-hmm. She's got better hair than me.
Well, that's because it's fake.
Well, there is that.
Now I'm going to put in a few more strands in there now. I didn't even know about Manhunter. I'm responding to Steven's Goodwin and Simonson are a great team, loved Manhunter. I didn't discover that till like way after the fact, like after I'd seen his work on Thor. And I was like, oh, you got to check out his Manhunter stuff from Detective Comics. I was like, what? But again, I wasn't much of a DC guy growing up. In fact, I wasn't one at all. So it's not surprising that I was completely unaware of it. But he did some really cool storytelling stuff in that. Archie was a good guy. I met him once. I was 19. He was appearing at a comic shop in Portland. And I prepared these samples, and I was so arrogant. I was so convinced that I was going to show him these samples, and he was going to go, "Oh, dude, you got to come to New York and work for Marvel." I remember getting ready to go in. I was talking to my mom, going, "What am I going to do when he offers me a job? Should I just go to New York at 19, or 18, whatever?" I would think it was 18. And so I was really like, losing sleep over what I was going to do. And of course, all he said was, "Oh, that's nice, because I'm not really an artist, so I can't really tell you much." I went, "Oh, okay, thanks." And that was it. It's kind of a humbling experience, which I needed. And then my whole life has been a humbling experience ever since then. So, oh, Rodney says the smell of old comics is the best smell. Indeed, it is. Actually, there's two things that really remind me of my youth. And whenever I smell an old comic, I'm 12 years old again. And the other thing is the smell of a freshly printed book. Oh my gosh, I love that. Like my sketchbooks, when I open them up for the first time to draw a sketch inside, and I smell that printer's ink and oh God, I love it. Love it. I gotta check my reference here. All right, I need to put a little bit of oh, I lost my screen. Where am I? Okay, there I am. I need to do a little bit of black on here, I think, but I'm gonna pencil it in first so I know what I'm doing before I actually do it. There we go. All right. It's so funny. I always insist on penciling in before I ink over the top of something, even a black area. And the funny thing is, I almost never erase. So if I'd done it with a pen, I would have done the exact same thing I just did with a pencil. But I don't know. I always like to see it before I commit. I'm messing with it even now. There's nothing more wonderful than a full black marker. So when that black starts squeaking, that's when the pain starts. That. There, I put some black in without checking it first. So you artists out there, how many of you guys like kept your artwork from when you were like a kid? I have an entire chest of drawers full of artwork from when I was like from kindergarten all the way up through high school and into college, actually, before I became professional. Because I remember, again, when I got to look back, the Wrightson book, he had this section where it said, you know, here's some drawings he did while he was in high school. There's only there's the oldest remaining Wrightson drawings or something, right? And there was like 2 or 3 of them, right? And I thought to myself, well, when I do someday when I get old and do the art of Aaron Lopresti, people are going to want to see stuff that I did before I became a professional to see, the difference. And so, I mean, I literally kept just about everything. I could do like a 3-volume set of my amateur artwork is how much I have left or still hanging on to. Some of it got moldy and I had to throw it out because I'm keeping it in the garage, which kind of pained me, but I have a ton left. Still have my artwork from childhood till now, except the stuff my mom kept. Well, if your mom kept it, then you still got it, or at least access to it. Excuse me. The black markers with the chemical smell that get you high. Well, that's an interesting story. I think I mentioned yesterday or one of the days, either Friday night or yesterday, about when I was trying to get the rights from Universal Studios to do a Universal Monsters like art portfolio, right? And what I did was back then I was working in commercial art, and I wasn't, what should we say? I wasn't ballsy enough to marker the original black and white drawings. So I did the black and white drawings, right? And then I got transparencies made, okay? And then I took marker bond paper, which obviously takes marker really well, but it's super thin, right? It's almost like tracing paper, but it's like coated tracing paper. And I put the marker bond over the top of the transparencies and then put the transparencies on a light table so I could see through clearly, right? And then I did all the marker work on this marker bond. And so they're 2 layers. The transparency has the line work on it. Then underneath it would have the marker drawing or the marker coloring, right? Which when you take the line work off, it looks like just a bunch of splotches, right? But, and I used these, I think they were Prismacolor markers or alcohol based, right? And I spent on one of them, I think it was the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. There was so much background, like gray and mist and stuff that I was doing with the markers. I was buzzed by the time I quit working on that drawing from all the alcohol that I had breathed in. It was very funny. Actually, it wasn't a good buzz. It was like I had a headache buzz from it. It was not good, but I think that was kind of funny. All right. I think that's pretty groovy. So I know how an artist would answer this, but I wonder if someone is just like an art collector. I mean, how much interest do you actually have in like seeing, like if I did the art of Aaron Lopresti, which I am going to do, but not for a while yet. How much, would a whole chapter of like my pre-professional art be like way too much? Or is there just like this sort of curiosity about, man, I wonder what his stuff looked like when he was 18, or what did he do when he was 14? Just curious. Oh, and by the way, doing a double thing like this is more expensive than $200. Just in case you're wondering, hey, how come he gets 2 characters and I only got 1 on mine? That's why. All right, so we're going to go in and do this girl now. Well, it's the same girl, but, you know, the alter ego. Intersperse it in the book at the start of the section or something like that. You know, that's interesting. That's a good concept, Paul. I like that. So like a couple pieces every chapter heading, and then kind of tie it in with a little story. I like it. It's a good idea. Because obviously if you do a whole chapter, it gets boring and people are just skipping through it going, okay, why am I looking at all this crappy artwork? Yeah, so do I. I mean, because it's sort of, I'm sorry, I'm answering a question without you guys knowing what I'm, Hyper says, I enjoy seeing how an artist progresses. Like, so do I. I find it fascinating, and especially when, you know, if it's someone you really respect or whatever, looking at them, saying, okay, what did he do when he was 12, and what did I do when I was 12? And you kind of see how you measure up in kind of a weird way, because what someone does when they're young is not necessarily indicative of what, you know, some people like, you know, they blossom really early. So you see someone just doing brilliant work at a young age, and then it, you know, they're still doing brilliant work, but it hasn't really, you know, it's like, it hasn't gone next level brilliant. But that being said, it's still nice to kind of see where you're at compared to somebody else, where they were at the same time. Especially if they sucked when they were young, like me, and then you say, wow, it is possible to get. Anybody want to buy a dog? But you sit there and say, you know, it is possible to get better through hard work and all that kind of good stuff. So I always found that sort of inspiring and challenging, unless someone showed their artwork. Husker, shut up. Sorry. You know, unless someone was like doing brilliant stuff when they were 12. But I remember looking at Wrightson's early work and saying, when he was a kid, the couple pieces he showed and went, well, he's not better than me. You know, of course he became better than me, but I'm sure he actually was better than me. Someone who's really spectacularly good when they were like a teenager is Jerome Moore. Now, Jerome hasn't done a ton of comic work, so I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with him, but he did like a lot of the Star Trek covers back in the 90s, and they were just brilliant. They're actually the Star Trek covers that actually looked, you know, like the characters, and they were almost movie poster like good. And his stuff when he was like 17 or 18 was just unbelievable. You know, like, how was that guy? I mean, he was like getting work when he was 18. And that is, and not just because you're like, oh, wow, you know, that guy's got a really interesting style, we're going to hire him. He was just like really good. So he kind of ticks me off. But he ended up doing a lot of, he didn't do a lot of comic work. He ended up working for, he did covers and stuff and very little interior work. And then he ended up working for Warner Brothers for character design and stuff like that for years. But he's still active on Facebook, and he should. And he actually inked my Marvin Martian Manhunter story. I did 2 years ago, whenever I did that, in those DC Looney Tunes mashup things. But yeah, so you should check out his stuff on Facebook if you're not. It's quite good. And Frazetta was ridiculously good when he was young, and so was Neil Adams. Holy crap. Like, I saw some stuff in one of the Neil Adams treasuries that he did when he was like 14, and you're like, are you kidding me? So, yeah. Oh, that's the old slap in the face, a little cold water in you. Let's see. Paul says, your hair looks really nice. Thank you. Didn't Joe Jusko start at 18 right out of high school? I think he may have, but some of his painting really early on was quite good. I don't remember exactly how young he was when he started, but I think you're probably right. The artists who are good as teenagers and getting work at that age are like the child actors of our time who amount to normal, regular jobs as adults. Think Home Alone, Kevin, Macaulay Culkin, or whoever you spell his name. Yeah, that's true. That does happen a lot. You have guys that, are brilliant very young, and then they just never, or really good very young, and then just don't. I think when you become a superstar at a very young age, I think there's a temptation to sort of settle in and just go, hey, this was what works for me. And when you're like me and you're struggling when you first break in and you really suck, you're like, I'm never going to work again if I don't get better. And so you just keep challenging yourself to get better and better and better. And even at my age, I'm still doing that. It's like I'm still trying to do better work and figure out ways I can do better work and find out what's wrong with my stuff. Or not what's wrong with it, but what could be better, I guess would be a better way of putting it. So I've never gotten comfortable, which, has helped me become a better artist. Although I'm not going to sit there and say that I wouldn't have liked to become comfortable. So I never had to worry about getting another job. Kind of comfortable, but yeah, things work out the way they're supposed to. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I don't know with Joe, because that's right. I thought he was a cop too before he got work. So I don't know. I have to check on that. I know Joe. I'll find out if that's true. If he was I'm pretty sure he was a cop too. That sounds right. So I'm curious. I want to find out when he got his first job. I'd heard that Frank Bruner was super young when he first started working, and I don't know if that's true or not. Like he was 16 or something, but I don't think that's true. But I heard that when I was a kid, and I don't know where I would have heard it from, but that was kind of the thing going around, is that Bruner was this child prodigy. And I don't think that's true. I think he probably was in his early 20s when he started, which is still pretty freaking young, but I don't think he was, that young. Because he was doing some pretty amazing stuff. But he was in that same sort of old school approach. Well, it's old school now. It wasn't at the time, but, kind of Wrightson and Plug, very illustrative approach, which was kind of the big thing in comics in the 70s, which is why my style is what it is. And then you've got kind of the 80s, which was really inspired by Michael Golden and guys, that spawned guys like Art Adams and, pardon the pun, when I said spawned, Todd McFarlane was very much influenced by Michael Golden. And, I think Jim Lee became influenced by Arthur Adams, who was influenced by Michael Golden. So, I mean, it's just kind of there was this very sort of illustrative approach in the 70s, which influenced me. And then there was this very sort of stylized, cool, not cartoony, but more, animated is not the right word either, but more exaggerated, maybe stylized, exaggerated approach that kind of appeared in the 80s that And so by the time I mastered what I was doing, I was already out of style. But man, if I drew back in the 70s, you guys are remembering me like, oh, that legend, Aaron Lopresti. At least I like to tell myself that. This is a Joe Kubert started. I think Joe Kubert actually did start when he was 16, but that was like back in the 40s and 50s and Joe was fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but there was a lot less competition back then. I mean, those were comic book jobs were like where you started and you tried to upgrade up to like newspaper strips and stuff and advertising because that's where the real money was. It wasn't in comics. That's really changed. Thanks, Johnny. Let's see. Okay, so Benjamin Lee says, what would you pinpoint a regular comic book artist's annual salary, a regular artist for Marvel or DC, or is that salary number variable? It's very variable. And so it's hard to say. I mean, there's guys like, Capullo and guys like that are getting they're making a ton. But they're getting paid. See, we get paid a page rate, right? So it's not like a salary or something like you get paid a page rate, which is completely negotiable. And the people that, it's not necessarily how good you are. And I'm not saying that, I think Capullo is very good, but it's also, there's a lot of guys that used to make, I mean, I don't know if page rates are, they're not what they used to be, believe me now, except for a couple guys, but it's perceived sellability is what, they don't sit there and go, wow, that guy's really good, let's pay him money. They say, does that guy sell books? And how do they figure that out? Well, they put you on Batman, guess what? You're going to be a guy that sells books. So a lot of those numbers are what an editor or a company perceives as your ability to sell books. And sometimes you get credit for stuff you shouldn't get credit for, and other times you get blamed for stuff you shouldn't get blamed for. When I did Tachyon for DC, it was a horrible book and flopped after 7 issues. Well, I got blamed for it because I was the artist on it. And the writer, who was an editor, didn't take any heat at all for how bad it was. And I thought the artwork actually was at the time, it was some of the best work I'd ever done. And if the book had sold well, then I would have been a superstar. But since it didn't, I was out on my butt looking for work. And it wasn't my fault that the book didn't sell, although you could argue that if, people were really thought my artwork was cool, they would have bought it despite the fact that it was not that well written. So I guess it's all perspective too. But yeah, to answer your question, I'm not going to tell you what I make, but it varies. And it varies a lot depending on who you are. But it's the same thing with thanks, Johnny. Actually, I didn't mean to click on that, but it was a nice compliment, so I'll take it. Would an average comic artist make under 100? Probably. But the issue with that again is how much work are you doing? Okay, because we get paid by the page, right? And if you're a guy like me who says, okay, I got bills to pay, right? So I have to do an issue a month or I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. Okay, I'm a guy who's going to get closer to that number than someone who does 3 pages a week and is, making the same page rate I am, right? So, but also you have to factor in original art sales and things like that go into that number as well. But generally speaking, if you were just getting paid to do a comic book and you didn't get royalties and you didn't sell original artwork or anything like that, you didn't go to cons and you don't count that money, just the actual money that you make for drawing a comic book. Most guys, it would be well under $100,000 a year. Probably in the neighborhood of anywhere from 50 to 70, depending on the page rate and how much work you're doing, would be what an artist, if you didn't have anything else, if you weren't selling artwork on the side and all that kind of stuff, or getting royalties. And royalties can change your year. I had 1 year, and it was one of the first years when I was drawing Sludge, when Sludge #1 came out. I got royalties on that, on Spider-Man 275, which was the gold foil Venom cover. I think I got a $10,000 royalty check just for that book, and I just did a backup story in that book. So I think I made like $80,000 in royalties that year, and it was only, and so I was doing really well, and I thought, wow, I'm going to be rich. And then of course the bottom dropped out and royalties went bye-bye. But I did have that 1 year where I did really, I mean, I didn't make like 200,000 or anything like that, but I made over 100 grand, and most of it was royalties off those books that were selling like crazy. And then when those royalties went away, then, suddenly it all becomes, you're like a plumber, man. You get paid for the work you do, and that's it. And so it all comes down to how much work you can get done, how much work they give you. But that's the thing. You can make no money or you can make a ton of money. It just depends on, the opportunity that you get. Do you end up on a hit book, or do you toil in obscurity and just, keep busy? So that's the most candid discussion I've ever had about how much money you can make in comics. My dad was always one that he never liked to talk about how much money he made, and he just thought that was like not cool. So I've always been kind of tight-lipped about that kind of stuff. And I think people, and plus there's so much, how should we say this, competition in comics. You don't want your page rate out there because some other artist who may think, well, I'm better than that guy. How come he's making more money than me? And that happened to CrossGen with me, when someone who was not making as much as I was found out how much I was making and then was talking behind my back, or what the heck are they giving him that much for, or whatever. And so we had to have a nice little conversation about that. Because it all comes down to, it's like anything else, like pro sports or anything else, like you get what you can negotiate, right? Okay, I got to get caught up here. Rodney says, your style has greatly evolved from Tachyon. Just pulled mine out now. Yes, it has, but that's what I'm talking about. It's like I kept trying to get better, Okay, let's see. Yeah, there's like a minute or more lag in what when I say something, it takes you guys, it's about you guys are like a minute delayed before you're actually hearing it. So, Paul wants to know, why did your run on Ms. Marvel stop? I thought it was great art and strong storyline. Afterward, it went from person to person until the book stopped. Yeah, that is an excellent question, because what happened was Marvel and DC, and they're even, I think, more into that now, they'd started going in this direction where they felt like the fans they wanted to see a change all the time, which I think is completely opposite of what fans want. I mean, if you have a crappy artist on a book, yeah, you want them off there. But if you have someone that you like and you get used to, how they're bringing it, you don't want someone else in there messing it up or changing the continuity. So then you have to kind of readjust your way of looking and thinking about the character, because it really does change your comfort level with the character. Because it suddenly is drawn completely differently than it has been for 2 years or whatever. But the writer was done, and they just wanted to change creative teams and move on. And, and plus they figure us as artists. I mean, I'd been on the book, I think I was close to 2 years on that. And, you like to draw something else. Unless you're on a book that's, again, is paying huge royalties, and you're kind of like, yeah, I'm not leaving Batman anytime soon, right? So, so that just kind of the writer's run came to an end, and then usually at that point when they switch writers, they're going to switch artists too. They didn't force me off the book, but the same thing with Wonder Woman. They didn't force me off the book, but when Gail was done, pardon me, Gail stayed on a little bit longer after I left. But they were like, hey, are you ready to move on to something else? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you offer me? Right. And I was, after 2 years, I was like, I felt like I'd drawn Wonder Woman enough. And I was supposed to take over Superman, but it was that horrific Straczynski story where Superman walks across America as Clark Kent. I'm like, I'm not drawing that. Are you kidding me? You put me on Superman and that's what you give me? I said, no. And so then I ended up on Justice League International instead, which I greatly enjoyed, but then got canceled prematurely. So, but I can guarantee if I'd taken Superman and drawn that story arc, when that story arc was done, I would have, moved on. They would have wanted to move me on to something else, and I would never even drawn something that I even remotely liked. So at least with Justice League International, I actually enjoyed that quite a bit. Thank you. Paul says those Wonder Woman covers were outstanding. Thank you. I did marker stuff, or pardon me, I did pencil stuff, pencil shading on those. So they're all gray tone, but I did them with pencil instead of marker. Because I knew I could get more nuanced with the pencil stuff. And there's only 1 or 2 covers that I would like to have back on that run. A lot of those I thought turned out pretty well. I was pretty pleased with them, actually. Well, since I'm doing this in black and white, I'm going to have to do her skirt, in black. Oops, sorry. Okay. If I could zoom out a little bit more. Okay. Well, it does look like a leather skirt, doesn't it, Rodney? Well, that's because now it is. Well, that was another thing. I was really sort of ticked off that I wasn't doing the covers on Ms. Marvel. And, okay, this is me responding to Paul's comment right here. Yeah, that was kind of when I went over to DC. I said, no more of this crap of other people doing my covers. I'm doing my own covers, and they were like, that's fine. So, and I've been really kind of pissy about that. Not so much anymore because it's a little bit more difficult. They're like finding cover artists before they even find interiors, and you got guys who've done like multiple covers before you even get an assignment to do the book. But they like for an example, when I did the Death of Hawkman miniseries, they came in and they said, "Oh yeah, you know," they asked me if I wanted to do it. And I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And then the editor, I can't remember who the editor was. Actually, we changed. There's like 3 different editors worked on that book. But anyway, the first editor was like, "Oh yeah, you'd be really psyched. We got Walter Simonson lined up to do the covers." And I go, "What?" And I said, "Look, I love Walt as much as the next person." I said, "But I said I'm doing my own covers, or I'm not doing the series." And they were like, "Well, I already told Walt." And I said, "Sorry, I guess you can get Walt to do the inside because I'm not doing it unless no way." And so they said, "Okay." And so they used like Simonson did a couple alternative covers or something and let me do the covers. And Dan DiDio had my back, so I could say stuff like that, and he'd stand up for me and go, "Yeah, let him do his covers." And the last time that happened was with the Conan Wonder Woman series, where for some reason they'd already hired Derek Robertson to do the covers for the series. And they asked me if I wanted to do it. I said, yeah. And I said, well, when do you need the first cover? Oh, someone's already doing the covers. And I went, nope. And they said, well, he's already done like the cover to the first issue. And I said, I don't care. And so I went and talked to Dan DiDio and I said, I said, I should be doing the covers for this series. It's my book. And so what he did was he said, well, okay. So they did alternative covers, which they weren't planning on doing, but they did. And I did all the alternative covers since Derek had already been hired to do the regular covers. So that was kind of the silly thing about that. But I mean, as long as I got to do covers, that was fine. Because I felt that was like their ultimate disrespect is if they say, well, yeah, you can do the inside, but I don't want you, doing the covers. That also happened to me on Just League International. I did the first 2 covers. And then they got David Finch to do the rest of the covers. And I'm a huge David Finch fan. And I think the covers he did were outstanding and probably better than what I would have done. However, they were paying him so much money that they had to put him on a book that was selling well enough to justify his page rate, but because they had promised him X amount of covers or whatever. And so he ended up on my book because that was selling pretty well. And that bumped me off the covers and Finch onto the covers, which really ticked me off. But it was just the way it was. There was nothing I could do about that. And like I said, he did terrific covers. I mean, I can't sit there and say he didn't do that because he did. But I was really ticked off that I lost my cover gig on that. And so I made a point of it that whenever I got another job that I would clarify that I was doing covers or I wouldn't be doing it, period. And then you get to a point where they don't care if you're doing the book or not. So you can't threaten to, anything because they're like, okay, I'll get someone else to do it. And you're like, oh, bad move on my part. Okay. Well, that's pretty nice. She's a teacher, but she can go out on the town, right, and dress up, right? Yeah, let's see here now. Did I do all the redesigns of the Justice League International? No, Jim Lee did all those because it was all part of the New 52. So Jim Lee did all the character designs, with the exception of Godiva, which I didn't really do much. Just made her kind of in a white superhero outfit. I'm not the best guy to design costumes because I don't put all that extra crap on there. I'm old school. I like to draw the figure, so I don't like belts and buckles and things that are covering up the figure. So I just usually draw skin tight 60s superhero outfits with some design on them. So I did design all the villains in Justice League International though, and I thought some of those were kind of cool. Let's see. Eric Bennett says, agreed 100%. Nothing disappoints me more than a different artist on the covers. It can feel like bait and switch. I like to know what the interiors will be like. And that's my argument. But I will say from an editorial standpoint, it is that a lot of times on series, at least it used to be, it's not so much anymore because there's so many people, desperate for work. But it used to be that, when they're publishing a lot of books, a lot of times you'd get an interior artist that was just competent, and wasn't, but they could meet the deadline. And so you'd hire somebody that, could really do a bang up job on the covers to get people to sell the book. I mean, that was like, if you look at Marvel in the 70s, that's what Gil Kane did, so many covers. And, the reason why is because he was a great cover artist and oftentimes better than the person working inside the book. But if you have somebody good, like you would never have, but then if you hired Neil Adams, Neil Adams is doing the cover, right? If he's doing the inside, he's doing the cover. Same with Wrightson or whatever. So, that's why I always felt like, well, if they're not offering me the cover, then they must not think very highly of my work. And that's what happens when you meet deadlines and you're a monthly comic book guy. It's ridiculous to say because it doesn't make any sense, but it is true. They lose a modicum of respect for you and think, oh, you're just you're a journeyman. You can meet the deadlines. We'll get someone else to do the covers. You're like, oh, no. I'm a guy who should be doing the covers and I can meet a deadline. I know that's rare, but, so I had to fight for that. And I still kind of my MO because I've always had bills to pay, right? And I've always been very responsible. And I don't tell people I'm going to do something and then not do it. If I'm supposed to meet a deadline, I meet that deadline. I'm getting a little ticked off, so I better calm down. The DC Legends and Metamorpho was really nice work. Big Brother and Blue Beetle story layout is among my favorite. Thank you. I did a video on that. You probably saw it, but there's a video on my storytelling approach on that dark multiverse book you're referring to. I think that's what you're referring to. Because I put a lot of thought and effort into that because it was like a big project. It was a prestige format kind of thing, and I really wanted it to look good. And I think it's some of the best work I've done at DC. Metamorpho started off really strong, but then I lost. I don't think the last couple issues are my best work, and I'll tell you why. Because my inkers kept bailing on me, and I kept switching. And I got ticked off. John Livesey actually jumped in and did a good job, but I didn't know who was going to be inking it. And Matt Banning was originally supposed to ink it, and he did a really nice job over me on the first 2 issues. And then I was able to get Jonathan Glapian on the 3rd issue, and he did a really nice job. But then I was like, and then he quit. And I was like, I didn't have any idea who I was getting, and I was like, I just was frustrated by the whole process. So it kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit, having different inkers. Because even if you get good inkers, there's still a different interpretation. So you're not getting that consistency. And so it was just really sort of ticked me off. John did a nice job, though. I'm not saying he didn't. But but I didn't even know he was going to do it. You know, we were scrambling, trying to figure out who was going to ink it. And that's just like not a cool position to be in, you know, after you put all that work into the story and you're, you know, thinking, oh, this is really going to be great. And then you don't even know who's going to ink it. And like I said, I was on my third inker after the third issue. And because all these guys, I'd get somebody like, you know, Glapian and they kept leaving to do better projects. And I was like, thanks. But I mean, I understand, you know, if someone offers you Batman, you're not going to keep inking Metamorpho. So yeah, that was kind of frustrating that it was so ended up being multiple inkers over it, and each one had kind of their own kind of look to it, and it just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of ticked me off that it ended up being that way. But you know, if I could have just started with one guy and stayed with the one guy, it would have been fine, because I would have known what I was getting every issue and didn't have to guess about it and didn't have to lose sleep over who am I going to get to ink this. That's happened to me a couple times, and like I said, there's nothing, you know, I'm not saying anything negative about the people that inked it. I'm just saying the fact that when you end up with that many people working on a project, it loses a level of consistency that you would like to have been there. Jack Kirby cover Don Heck interiors for Iron Man. I was never a big Don Heck fan. I mean, it's not like he was bad or anything. It just didn't really, his style didn't really work for me that much. And I know Heck did some Avengers covers there in the 60s, but he didn't do a lot of cover work, I don't think. All right. Oops, sorry. All right, we're coming to a close on this, I think. I'm going to do a little bit of modeling on a shirt here. And that's the other thing, you know, when you switch inkers, that's why I try to stay with one, which has been Matt Ryan, but Matt and I parted company when I did, like, that wasn't his fault, it was my fault, on, what was it, Amethyst, because Mike Martz had suggested that they scan from my pencils, you know, and not ink the work. And I was like, I never thought about doing that, but I said, yeah, I'll give it a try. And that wasn't very considerate to Matt, because I kind of threw Matt out on his own and said, well, I'm doing this, sorry. And so it took me a while. And after I did that, it was so much work. I was like, I'm never doing this again. I mean, I think the Amethyst stuff looks really cool, but man, it was a lot of work. And so I was bebopping back and forth with different inkers, and I never knew from project to project who I was going to get to ink it. And so it was very, you know, you're penciling on something and you're thinking, I don't even know what this is going to look like or who's going to ink it. And so it was a lot of frustration in there for me. But Matt and I finally were able to reconnect on Conan Wonder Woman, and I've stayed together ever since. Okay, let's see. Aaron, quick question. In general, how do professional artists like yourself feel art recreating, copying covers for issues you've done in the past? No one's ever asked me to do it. So apparently I don't have an iconic cover that someone wants recreated. I don't know that I'd want to do it, simply because I don't like to revisit stuff. I mean, if you did something that really sucked, then maybe. But even then, it's like, well, there's a good example is when I first did Power Cubed for Dark Horse, my creator-owned series. It was originally called Atomic Toy Box, and I did a cover to the first issue, and it was released through Image. I never got past the first issue, right? But I didn't recreate that cover. I just was like, I need to, I wanted to do something completely different. And that's, I don't know, like Mike Zeck recreated is that Captain America annual cover that was just fantastic with Wolverine on it, like a million times, so much he got sick of doing it. And I can see that. A lot of times I don't even like inking myself because I'm like, oh, I already drew it. Do I have to draw it again by inking it? I do it on covers because it's just a single image that, but like inking interiors is really hard for me because I tend to lose focus and get bored. But yeah, no one's ever actually asked me to recreate something I'd done before. I don't think I would do it. I guess if I was desperate for cash, I would. Which could be sooner than later. But it's not something that I would probably want to do. But like I said, we have to. If someone would actually have to ask me to, would actually want me to do it, which I don't know that anybody's ever even. Someone just asked me to do a recreation of someone else's cover, which was fine because I've never done it before. So now you kind of do your own take on it. Arthur Adams does those a lot. He used to do them a ton. He would like recreate old, Marvel covers. And they were really cool because he would do it. He wouldn't like trace the image and whatever. He would just kind of do his own version of it. And I thought it was really cool. And that I've done that before. I don't know if you guys saw my I did a recreation of Amazing Spider-Man 100 for a guy. It's since been up for sale again. I thought it was really cool and it was really enjoyable to do. But yeah, I don't know that I would recreate my own. I was going to ask you to recreate that MJ piece, which you'll never do. I don't know which Mary Jane piece you're referring to. Now, interestingly enough, I accidentally recreated one of my own drawings. But it was an accident. I started doing a commission for a guy, a Ms. Marvel commission for somebody. And I got to the, I had penciled it pretty tightly and there was something about, you know what I did? I colored the lightning bolt on her chest the wrong color. I think I made it red instead of yellow. And I was like, crap. So what I did was I light tabled the image and then corrected it and then, gave the guy the correct image, of course. And then I kept the one that I screwed up. And it was sitting in a drawer and it was sitting in a drawer forever. And I totally forgot that it was I couldn't remember what it was for. I found it sitting there and I was like, why is this here? And I thought, well, you know what? Why don't I just finish this up? And then I can paint over the lightning bolt the correct color in acrylic. And then somebody, then put it up for sale. Then someone would look at it and say, okay, they could see what it is and then make the decision whether or not they wanted to buy it, as opposed to doing a commission for somebody, then sending them with a big patch basically on the chest and then going, yeah, could I get this without the patch? But when you see the original artwork and you see that there's, that it's patched or filled in or whatever with paint, then you know what you're getting before you spend the money, right? So it's not you're not getting a shock to the system or getting something maybe you don't want. You're making the decision to buy it based on what it is. And so anyway, so I finished the piece and put it up for sale. Then somebody contacted me that I did the original commission for, and he goes, wow, this looks surprisingly like the one you did for me. And I'm like, oh no. And so I apologized to him. I said, man, I totally forgot that's what this was, or I never would have done it. I'm super sorry, and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, so there was a accidental recreation. So I'm going to beef up the lines here on this gal. Offer a sticker. See, okay, you know what, John? That comment, let me right there. That's John trying to be a smart aleck, and when that happens, this is what you get. Okay, so anyway. Female intuition tingling. I still don't remember which one it was. I've done so many commissions over the years. I can't. Was that the one where she was like putting her pants on or something and Spider-Man's peeking around the corner? Because that one was, I did that a long time ago and I could do that better than I did it. So that might be something I would recreate. If I look at it and go, wow, I could do that better now. Although I don't know if I would, because that was a commission that I did for somebody and I wouldn't want, yeah, no, I wouldn't. I might do something similar in terms of theme, but I wouldn't be exactly the same. Because that's the thing is, you know, when people, you get a bunch of people want to, you know, Planet Hulk commission, right? Well, maybe one of them turns out nicer than the other one, and then someone sees the one that's nicer than the one they got on the internet, and they're like, wow, that guy, how come that guy's is nice and mine isn't? I had that happen to me one time. I still feel guilty about it. I did this Daredevil piece, a really nice one. And this guy saw it and he's like, oh, dude, I want a Daredevil. And that's why I hate it when people see like the Sue Storm thing, right? Everybody saw that Sue Storm piece and like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I want one. And then you do another one and I mean, it's not quite as nice as the one, you know, and then they're kind of like, whoa, that one's better than the one I got. So that's why, you know, I'm always kind of reluctant to do ones that are too similar. Although I have in the past, because I mean, how many different poses can you put Wonder Woman in? And I've probably done at least 50 Wonder Woman commissions, if not more. Okay, the sexy MJ. Again, that would be every MJ, right? It's not like she's ugly and you're going to go, wow. You know, MJ's a sexy character, so obviously. But this was a really old one, right, that you're talking about? I did a really nice Gwen Stacy. And Gwen Stacy's just standing there, and I think Peter Parker, kind of like this, and Peter Parker's up here, but he has his Spider-Man mask pulled partially up in the background. That was a really nice piece. I did that. It was one of those ones that kind of, you know, you look at a certain era of your work and you go, wow, that piece really stands out. Like I kind of outdid myself on that one compared to the other stuff I was doing at the time. And I don't remember who I did that for, but it was a pretty nice piece. All right, Caleb, we're wrapping this sucker up right now. And then I'll do the sketchbook and then I'll be on my way. So that's the thing now. I can't even do. Everybody's so conditioned to what my commissions look like. If I wanted to change it up and go, I want to approach this differently, I don't think I could do it because people are expecting like this style, right? So if I brought something different, people might be disappointed. So if I want to do something different, I sort of have to kind of do it on my own and then put it up for sale. And again, so people can see what they're getting before they buy it and then make the decision based on what they're seeing, whether they want to get it or not. because sometimes I'd like to just do rougher sketches, than what I do. Because these are really, I mean, they're sketches supposedly, but they're really finished drawings, at least pen ink marker drawings, what I would consider a finished marker drawing. And sometimes you're like, oh, I just like to do something a little rougher, actually more like a sketch. But then if you do that, and the person's expecting this, they might be a little ticked off. So. I guess I've made my bed. I can lie in it, right? All right. There it is. Caleb's given me the blowing kisses emoji, so I think he likes it. So that's good. I got to find a pen to sign this. Oh, I want to put a little highlights in this leather skirt of hers with my charcoal white pencil. The Batman you did a while ago was rougher and worked really well. Yes, that was an instance where I kind of thought that worked. And I mean, I still did it. I still markered it and did all this stuff. It just had looser line work. But I don't think you want to do a pretty girl. And that's generally what I get asked to do, with rough line work. I want something more smooth and delicate, shall we say. Or sexy Fing Fang Foom time. It's up to you. Take out the sexy part. Yeah. All right. Okay, so those are my 2 con commissions that I had left to do. There's Sue Storm again. And of course I did the Deadpool and the other Sue Storm. See, that's why I didn't want to do 2 Sue Storms, because someone say, ooh, this one looks better than the other one. And then you're like, what are you going to do? All right. Give me 5 seconds here. I got to grab a sketchbook. Oh, my back. That's old age, man. You stand up and you start complaining about your back. All right, let me get a plug in for these, since I have to. Oh, still got 19 people keeping an eye on things. That's pretty good considering it's midnight in the East Coast. All right, so again, oops. There you go. That's good till midnight tonight. It literally is till midnight tonight. Free sketch. Honestly, the free shipping is not that big of a draw because it's only $5 to ship it anyway. But $5 is $5, right? All right, I gotta get another drink of water. Pardon my reach. All right, I'm doing Swamp Thing. Was that one of my options? It was Swamp Thing or Fing Fang Foom, right? It wasn't Man Thing. Was it Man Thing or was it Swamp Thing? No, I can't remember. Had to be Swamp Thing. Oh, sexy Swamp Thing. Okay, I'm doing Swamp Thing because that's what Bernie writes in the journal. Gotta find a pencil first. What side is his ear on? He only has one ear. Do you guys know that? Swamp Thing only has one ear, and I think it's on his right side, not his left side. And since we're looking at his left side, then he won't have an ear in this drawing because it's on the other side, isn't it? Oh, now I got to go look. Sorry. I'll be right back. Actually, let me show you what I can do. I've shown you guys this before, but I'm going to do it again. If I turn the camera off, my little garbage man icon comes on. And you don't have to look at like the marble countertop. You can look at Garbage Man, which of course is coming out next year, by the way. Okay, let's see this one. Yes, his ear is on his right-hand side, so we would not be seeing his ear from this angle. Okay, I just want to be accurate, man. It's all about accuracy. Angelo says, man, that's a nice piece. You talking about the Garbage Man piece? Oh, no, you're talking about the... this is an old one. I'm behind on my comments. You're talking about the sketch I just... Or the, talking about the commission I just did. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. See, the people doing Swamp Thing now don't give him any pupils. They just give him like red eyes or, you know, without any pupils. But Wrightson drew him with pupils, so I am drawing him with pupils. Because it's all about the classics. So this is the Wrightson classic version. This is not the more modern version. My dog just came in bringing in a shoe. That was that clumping sound you may have heard on the floor. Oops. What do you need? What? I'm talking to my dog. He's down there staring up at me. I'm hoping for the love of God he's not giving me that, hey, I need to go outside like right now, I'm going to pee on the floor look, which I'm afraid is what he's doing. Can you go outside? Huh? Well, I am not interested at all in cleaning up dog pee. So here's what I'm going to do. I think you got people watching right now, but I'm going to put you on pause for a minute here. I'm going to put up the old stop cam. I will be back in like 3 minutes after I let the dog out. All right. And I'll finish up this drawing. So talk amongst yourself. I'll be right back. I apologize, but life gets in the way. All right, I'm back. Sorry. All right, I'm back. John Smith, can we all go on a pee break? Absolutely, you could have. You should have taken the opportunity. Right then that was the chance. All right. Let's. What are you eating? This dog will eat anything he finds on the floor. And it's generally not food. All right. I'm going to adjust this camera a little bit. It's not in my comfort zone. All right. This is actually quite a good Swamp Thing start. I'm very pleased with how this looks. Looks very classic in the rights and sense, and that's, like I said, man, that's how I roll. Which is probably my problem. I'm too married to tradition, you know? It's like if I remember a character from my youth, like Swamp Thing, that had quite an effect on me, then it's like when I draw the character, I wanted to draw like I remember him, as opposed to, hey, I should put a groovy new spin on him and do my own take, which is what a lot of people do. Then they get kind of attention for doing something cool and new, or I'm just sitting here like recreating the past because that's what I remember and that's what I liked. So all my flaws are coming out in this broadcast. Thank you, Rodney. Rodney's giving me, he's like my emotional support group. Problem is now we got these big black areas that I can't fill in. I got a crosshatch. The pain. All right. It is what it is. Guess I should have gone for Fing Fang Foom, but can't pass up Swamp Thing. So I'm at a convention with Wrightson, right? I mean, not with him. We weren't like, you know, didn't go together or anything, but I was sitting next to him in the Artist Alley area at this show up in Seattle. And the thing about Bernie, and I've told this before, is that I met the guy at least 5 or 6 times, and not just like in passing, right? I mean, I met him, we went to dinner, you know, sat next to him at conventions, you know, evenings at the bar after a show, that type of thing, right? So it's not like, and like 5 or 6 times. And if I meet a fellow artist, you know, generally, now granted, I was certainly not someone that, you know, would have been worth his time to remember, but when I met him, I was quite young and still kind of making my way, but still, you know, you hang out with someone 5 or 6 different times, you'd figure, you know, after that 5th or 6th time, you'd remember him, right? No, he never remembered me. But anyway, so I'm sitting next to him at this convention, and he was talking to me, calling me Aaron, and, you know, I mean, it's like, next time I saw him, I had no clue who I was. But anyway, so I'm sitting next to him at this show, and he starts drawing this picture, and I'm such a Wrightson honk and a Wrightson, you know, expert or whatever, that he starts drawing this, and it looked kind of like a bat shape. You know, it was just kind of this weird shape on the paper. And the guy was like, "What are you drawing?" He goes, "Oh, you know," it was like a surprise to this guy what it was, right? And so I'm sitting there watching him draw this, and I just blurred out, "Oh my gosh, that's Frankenstein." And he looks at me and he was so pissed because he was doing the brow to like Karloff's Frankenstein, right? But he just did the brow, and he did the brow, and I knew immediately what it was. And he was a little ticked at me. So you really would have thought he would remember me after that, but he didn't. It was probably a good thing because, you don't want your artistic idol to just, the only thing he remembers about you is this bad thing. So, but that was the most crushing thing for me, was that the guy was my idol, and he just never remembered me after it. And so I remember the last time I saw him, it was like at San Diego. And again, this is after we'd had dinner. We'd, sat next to each other at cons. And I went up and, I started talking to him, and I could tell about, 30 seconds into the conversation, he had no freaking idea who I was. And so, and then it's one of those times where, this has happened to all of us, right? Where you're standing at somebody's table and you're talking to them, and they start to get interested in something else. And then you're still standing there at their table and you kind of feel like an idiot. So you just kind of sort of skulk away. And that's what I did. That was the last time and then at that point I was like, I gave up on him. I was like, I don't care. I don't care if I ever see him or meet him again. But it was a little depressing when you, it's pretty cool. When you meet your idol multiple times and they never remember you. It's tragic, really. John Smith, what was your name again? See, and John remembers me because John was there at the very beginning when I was an absolute nobody, and he was buying my stuff, supporting me back in the good old days. So I know you remember my name, John. Humphrey Bear, TikTok. Not sure what you're trying to imply there, but it seems to me that could be viewed as sass. So, let's see here. Wrightson remembered you. He just wanted to get back at you for spilling the beans about his Frankenstein drawing. Yeah, you may be onto it. You may be onto something. For as great as Wrightson's Swamp Thing was, his work for Warren, Creepy and Eerie magazine, was just next level. I mean, everybody talks about his Frankenstein stuff, and that's great, but that wasn't comic book work. That was illustration. But his comic book work for Warren magazine, oh, so good. I mean, just brilliant. But he often told the story that, when he went to work for Warren paid him better than anybody's ever paid him before, but he expected him, to bring the goods, and he did, man. God, if you're not familiar with Wrightson's work for Warren magazine, Dark Horse published a hardcover collection of Wrightson's work in those magazines, and stuff is just phenomenal. You have to check it out. I mean, if you're not a Wrightson fan, then, why would you? But most of his work after 1980 was not anywhere near as incredible as his work between 1972 and 1980. So if you're only familiar with his newer stuff, you need to get familiar with his older stuff, because that's stuff that's really brilliant. Johnny Fitz says, still live? Nice. You're really committed. Dude, I am, because I got to get this stuff done. And if I don't do it, then I won't do it. I guess that kind of is overstating the obvious, isn't it? But this is the last one I have to do. I have two other sketchbooks to do, but they involve likenesses. So I'm not doing those live. That's, that's too arduous of a process. So those will be done in private. Wow, this is really nice. This might be one of the nicer ones I've done, but you know, when you do a monster, you always get more detail than you do if you want like a headshot of a woman. You just draw a pretty girl, and it's pretty basic stuff, and you can't put a lot of line work on it because you don't want to mess up her face. But when you're drawing something ugly like this, you can put as much line work and craggy stuff on there as you want because it actually adds to it. And there's certain things I'm more passionate about, so I kind of get carried away and start doing extra work on them, and then realize, hey, wait a minute, I'm only getting $20 for this. What am I doing? But for me, it always ends up, I always want the art to look good, and if that means I sometimes put more work in it than I should, then that's just the way it is. Well, Mike Miller comes in with the sass. Self-portrait, Aaron, he says. See? Now, see, Mike's always doing a live feed, like practically every night. So I'm amazed that he's actually not doing one right now, and he's coming in and checking out my whatever. That's good stuff. It's the kind of stuff nightmares are made out of. Who am I kidding? Every day is a day to sass Aaron. That's truly true. Is it possible that I order a book and get Garbage Man? That's very possible. You can get whatever you want. Oh, I think that's fabulous. Well, thank you, Johnny. Again, Garbage Man is a character that's, it's got a lot of warts and can put a lot of detail into him. And so those always, monsters and, things like that are always fun because you get to do that extra, like this, like with these extra lines in here. And it looks perfectly normal because there's some kind of creepy, weird creature. So. Benjamin Lee likes it. Hey, have you paid me for this yet, Benjamin Lee, or am I going to keep this? You know, PayPal's right there. I think that's pretty groovy. I'm going to sign it. Mike wants that Grinch clip bad. I gave it to him. All right, so this is, you guessed it. Let's check the bat book and see what number this is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My dog's annoying me again. What? See, you can see him down there? There he is, jumping up, annoying me. All right, so this is 214. And this is going to Benjamin Lee, Swamp Thing, 45 bucks. Okay. Keep track. Someday I'll look back and I'll know all 750 of them and who I sold them to. Oscar, get out of there. Get out of there. Okay, now I forgot what number it was. What did I say, 214? This dumb dog distracted me. 214 it is. Boom. All right, he just paid me, so I can send him the book now. All right, guys, that is all I got. So let's take a look again at this. That's pretty nice. Kind of dig that. All right, so we got that. Take a quick look at what else was accomplished this evening. And there's Sue Storm, or is it Sue Richards? I guess it depends, right? This is probably before they were married, so this would be Sue Storm. And then we have Caleb's character, who I can't remember her name again. But anyway, that turned out pretty well, too. She's ready for action. All right. So there it is, guys. That wraps it up. The Christmas leftover. Oh, wait a minute. I better do the banner so we all remember what we've been watching. Because if I put the time to make the banner, then there it is. Aaron's Christmas leftovers special. Love it. Just warm it up in the oven and it's good to go. Well, let me zoom out here so I don't frighten small children. Yeah, look, I still got baubles up there on my banners. There's Garbage Man back there, and you'll recognize that this Garbage Man banner. This is actually the little icon that I used when I went to take the dog out for a whiz. So, small world. This is actually the promo. This is actually the promo piece that I did for when I was pitching the Garbage Man. So there you go. And that was actually a watercolor. I didn't do that in Photoshop. I did that in watercolor. It's a great story, Aaron. Thanks for sharing. Okay, hey, thank you guys for dropping by. I didn't expect to have this big of a crowd, but I'm happy that I did, and I appreciate you guys taking the time, and especially those of you on the East Coast who are like going, oh my gosh, it's after midnight, Aaron. Why'd you keep me up so late? But I don't know when I'll be back again. You never can tell, but as soon as I have something to draw on air or share, I will definitely do it. Maybe we'll come back on like the eve before Christmas Eve just to see what's happening. I won't do it Christmas Eve. That seems kind of tacky. But anyway, again, those of you guys who ordered stuff from my Christmas con this past weekend, that stuff's in the process of getting boxed up and it'll be shipped out. So please be patient with me. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So again, thanks. everybody for stopping by. Enjoyed the conversation. I enjoy getting the questions because it gives me something to talk about while I'm drawing. So everybody have a great week coming up, and we'll see you soon. Bye.